Um, welcome to the Sandburg Library Cite It Right Workshop. I'm Marla Turgeon, your Sandburg librarian. Rebecca Eaton, you've already met her, is helping with us today. She's going to be our chat monitor. If you have any questions during this workshop, go ahead and write it in the chat, and Rebecca will keep track of it for us. So let's start with what is plagiarism. So here's the Oxford English Dictionary's definition. And in other words, it's uncredited use, both intentional and unintentional, of somebody else's words or ideas. Simple. So is it plagiarism if I borrow someone's ideas or if I use their actual words? Well, the answer is both. You need to clearly quote and cite when you use someone else's words, and you need to do the same minus the quotes when you use their ideas. Understand that adding to the world of scholarship is about building on another's previous work, and you need to respect that work by not only citing their words, but also their ideas. Think of it this way. If a fact or idea you bring up in your paper turns out to be inaccurate, then a citation can help you make your argument, or at the very least, show your due diligence. So what does plagiarism look like? First, this includes buying papers, finding papers on the internet, or using a friend's work. The college will use a plagiarism detection service called Turnitin. This service will find out if you've copied someone else's work. When you've been caught plagiarizing, it can result in a failure for the course and disciplinary action from the college. Second, you must use in-text citations along with the complete citation on your works cited page. And yes, if you don't cite previous work that you have personally authored, it's considered self-plagiarism. The reason for this is, if you don't acknowledge that it's from past work, the reader believes it's new and an original idea. It's not ethical, and it's considered academic fraud. Now, if you have information from a previous paper and you'd like to reuse it, then you ask your instructor about it. Third, you can't change words, a few words in the arrangement of words in someone else's work and turn it in as your own. This is where learning to paraphrase comes in. Last, keep track of all the sources you use as you do your research and while you're writing your paper, so you don't accidentally reuse someone else's words and forget where that information came from. So now we're going to have a wee bit of fun. How's everybody doing out there? You guys still with me? Let's take a few moments, and I want everybody to open their chat box. It's the little talking bubble icon in the toolbox toward the top of your screen. And then once you get that open, if you could open up the emojis and give us a smiley face so we know you're still there. Is everybody finding it? There we go. And I apologize, that was my dogs. Great, okay, I'm glad you guys are there. So let's go on now. The next slide. Whenever you use a quotation or paraphrase information from another work in your paper, it's essential that you use in-text citations. This is done by putting your citation in parentheses. So MLA uses an author page number system for in-text citing. On the next few slides, I'm going to show you the basics, but remember there's additional rules for MLA style. You're going to need to go to either the MLA style manual, the libraries has a LibGuide, or the Purdue OWL for assistance for this. MLA in-text citations include the last name of the author, followed by the page number, enclosed in parentheses. Notice in the first example, there's not a comma between the name and the page number. In the example with two authors, use an and between the authors' names. And again, there's no comma. In the example with three or more authors, use et al., which is the Latin abbreviation meaning and others. We've got somebody in the lobby. go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so some online sources are not going to have page numbers. In this case, simply use the author's name in parentheses. For example, if an article from one of the library's databases does not show a clear page number on your screen, then don't use it in your in-text citation, okay? So what are quotations and when should I use them? Quotations are the exact words of an author copied directly from a source. Make sure you're using your quotes sparingly. Most of your paper should be in your own words. And all quotations will require a formal citation. This includes your in-text citing as well as the citation on your works cited page. Okay. Okay, so this slide has examples of how quotations appear when you in-text cite. When you have more than one author, then follow the rules for multiple authors that we just went over. Okay, question time. A student writes a paper that includes the following passage. Go ahead and read it along with that highlighted part of the screenshot. We'll give you about 30 to 45 seconds to read it all. Okay, so now we're going to ask the question. I want you to go to, let me see, the chat box and click it to open. And Rebecca is going to insert a poll there, right? And okay, so then what I want you to do once you see the poll is answer yes or no if you consider this plagiarism. It's anonymous and nobody else is going to see your specific answer, we hope. I'm not seeing anything on my end. There we go.
Are you getting the responses now, Marla?
Yes, now I'm getting great. Okay, cool. And Aaliyah's typing something. I see. Did I give you the hint that has to do with the quotation marks? Okay, I see a lot of you have. Okay, great. Great, thank you guys. Okay, let's go to the next slide then. And yes, this student plagiarized. It was probably unintentional and possibly just a simple typing error, but anytime passages are used verbatim, they must be placed within those quotation marks. Note the correct way to cite this. The quotation marks should have been around the entire passage. Also notice that there was not a page number present, so I didn't use one in the in-text citation. So now let's move on to paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is a restatement in your own words of someone else's ideas to back up your opinions. Changing a few words of the original statement or trying to stitch together numerous phrases from other authors is not considered paraphrasing. You need to change both the words and the sentence structure without changing the meaning. So next I want to talk to you about this. It's a misconception to believe that you're relying too much on other sources. It's actually to your advantage to use quality sources to back up all of your ideas. Good paraphrasing makes the ideas of the source fit well into your paper. Just make sure you're not copying someone else's ideas, but you're also adding to your own thoughts as well. Now here's some steps to help you with paraphrasing. I want you to read and reread the section until you fully understand the meaning. Now that you understand the meaning, try a quick rewrite. Then check that rewrite to make sure your vision fits in with the message. Make sure you're using quotation marks around unique terms or phrases that you're borrowing from the source. And then make sure you record the sources so you don't forget about it later. And then above all, remember to use your in-text citation after the paraphrase. So here's an example of how paraphrasing looks when you in-text cite. When you have more than one author, then follow the rules for multiple authors that we went over before. Okay, we got question time again. I'm going to have you tell me if this is or isn't considered plagiarism. The top passage is the original text, as you can see. The next is the student's rewrite of the text. I'll give you about 30 to 45 seconds to read these. Okay, so go to that chat box again. Rebecca has another poll in there. Please answer yes or no. Is this considered plagiarism? Okay, we got 50-50. 50 say yes, 2 say no. Okay. Looks like that's it. Let's go to the next slide. Yep, it's plagiarized. As you can see, the words the student used are crossed out in the example below. They didn't rewrite the sentence in their own words. They only substituted words with synonyms, and it's not considered paraphrasing. Okay, so a signal phrase is a short phrase that introduces a quote or a paraphrase. It's a signal to your reader that an outside source is being used. That's why they call it signal phrase. We learned when using in-text citations, the citation is located at the end of the sentence with the author's name and page number, right? But if you refer to the author's name within a sentence, you do not have to include the author's name again as part of your in-text citation. So now I'm going to walk you through putting together your citation works cited page. This is an article that's from one of Sandburg Library's databases. Now this is going to go pretty fast, and I'm not going to be able to tell you everything you need to know about MLA citations. There's just too much. But the point here is to explain the process to you. So we start with the author. The name's usually around the top of the article. And in this case, and with most all Gale databases, the information you need is going to be at the top of the page. The author here is Joanne Margaret Heinz-Dusel. Now, I just can't copy the name right over. MLA requires the author's name to be inverted, so it will be written as Heinz-Dusel, comma, Joanne Margaret. And since there's only one author, we add a period to indicate that this part's done. Now, the article's title comes next. This is going to be at the top of the document also. And there's two things you should know about article titles. The first thing is when you copy them into a citation, you format them by MLA rules. Sometimes you could run across a title that is printed in all caps or all lowercase letters, but MLA requires it to be in title case. Title case is the technical term for capitalizing the first letters of the important words, as shown in the first bullet on this slide. The second thing you should know about article titles is that the title should be encased in quotation marks. In MLA, quotation marks indicate small works enclosed inside of larger works. And this is an article that's held inside of a journal. Next, we close the title with a period, which goes inside the final quote. That's the rule, and it looks pretty too. Your citation so far should look like this. Heinz-Dusel, comma, Joanne Margaret, period, quotation mark, practice and motor learning, period, quotation mark. After the article information comes the journal title, and this is where the article lives, or what MLA calls the container. In this case, the container is a journal called The Physical Educator. Journals get their titles in italics because they're larger works and, well, because MLA just says so. No period after this title though, because journals don't just have titles in their section, so use a comma here. So here's the other things that journals have: volumes and issues and dates. Volumes have multiple issues, just like TV shows have multiple episodes within a season. Volumes are like seasons and their issues are like episodes, okay? So this article is from volume 59, issue 2. We noted in the citation as lowercase VOL period 59 comma, lowercase NO period 2 comma. And of course, in case you didn't notice, NO stands for the issue number in this case. Now, dates can be a little bit trickier. The article might just give you the year. It might give you a month and a year, or may give you a season and year. Whatever supplies, the rule is to include as much of the information date as the source is giving you, okay? In this case, we can see that the issue was published in spring 2002, so that's what we include. So notice how we're still working within this section. So we are using commas throughout. When a section is complete, that's where the period goes. Of course, the exception here is after the abbreviations VOL and NO. Now, if there were page numbers shown in this database, we would include those at this point, depending on the paging, either used in a P period used for a single page, or PP period used for multiple pages, then a period at the end of the page numbers. But since there's no page numbers, we're going to use a period after the date. This is how the citation looks at this point. So how's everybody doing? Are you guys still with me? Everybody doing well out there? Yay, great. Awesome.
Marla, we have someone with their hand up. Is that Carrie? Did you have a question? Or were you just saying, yeah, you're good?
No, don't mind me. I'm just saying I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Great. Thanks for letting us know. Okay. So let me see. Now let's go to the next slide then. Okay, there we go. Now, at the end of the citation, we still need to indicate the database that the article came from, okay? I found this one in Gale Academic OneFile. MLA states that the database is also a container, so the name should be in italics. Note that OneFile is one word. That is its actual brand name, so we leave that as is. Put a comma after the database name. Now, if you found an article online such as this one, you need to add the URL. You need to look for a link called permalink, stable link, or in this case, it's called get link that's on the article page. These are links that won't change. Don't use the URL link that you have up in your browser. That link is not going to work for your instructor later on, okay? Notice also how the link is in black and it's not underlined. Also exclude the HTTP or HTTPS from the URL. Some articles are going to also have what is called a digital object identifier, or DOI. If one's present, use it instead of the permalink or URL. And then you add a period at the end of the section. And ta-da, this is what your citation is going to look like. But there's more. MLA requires a hanging indent. That means that the first line of each citation starts at the left margin and subsequent lines are indented. Don't just use the tab key to do the indentation. The spacing is going to be off. Instead, give it a hanging indent using your word processing software. And don't forget to double space too. And your works cited list needs to be in alphabetical order, okay? If you don't know how to do any of those things, just ask a librarian. So here's some tips to prevent plagiarism. First, I want you to plan your paper and start your research early. It's going to lead to less stress. Second, take notes and stay organized. Keep your sources together digitally or write them down. Third, when you're writing your paper, make sure you are being clear. Be sure that you're transparent about what ideas are yours and what you're using from the source. Then cite it. It's always better to oversight than to undercite in your papers, okay? Finally, the library has a product called LibGuides. These are online guides that can answer questions about citations, research, and any other library stuff that you might need help with. Rebecca's going to put the link to our LibGuides homepage in the chat. Make sure you go in there and click on it and bookmark it for future reference. It's going to be a good help to you. Also remember, I'm here to help you with any questions you have with your citations. I'm available most anytime too. I want you to send me an email, or we can do a Teams meeting if you'd like me to walk you through any citations. I love doing this stuff for students. That's, you know, my thing. So, and then we've got this page. What kind of a librarian would I be without a works cited page, right? While we're here, I want to point out that there are different styles of citation in the world of academic writing too. I only shared today information about MLA style in this workshop. I want you to make sure you're using the citation style that your instructor is requiring. You can find that information generally in your syllabus or in the paper's directions. If they're not there and you can't find it, then just ask your instructor, okay? And this is the end of our presentation. Are there any questions?